Discover the untold story behind one of the 1980s most beloved cult comedies, Three Amigos, 1986. Starring Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short, this riotous Western spoof quickly won over fans with its unforgettable musical numbers, larger-than-life characters, and offbeat humor. Yet beyond the catchy tunes and slapstick gags lies a treasure trove of behind-the-scenes anecdotes, casting twists and production hurdles that shaped this comedy classic. Whether you're a lifelong fan or a curious newcomer, delve into these 30 little-known facts to unearth hidden details, spotlight surprising cameo appearances, and appreciate how Three Amigos evolved from a modest box office performer into a cherished cinematic legend. Join us as we explore the chaotic creative process, enduring friendships, and enduring legacy that make Three Amigos a timeless favorite among comedy connoisseurs. A spoof born from Western love. Did you know that the 1986 comedy gem Three Amigos was initially sparked by the desire to spoof classic Hollywood westerns like The Magnificent Seven? The creators took the idea of three silent film actors, endearingly clueless yet big-hearted, and threw them into a dusty Mexican village desperately needing heroes. It's a delightful homage to those iconic Western ensembles, laced with the mistaken identity hilarity that movies like Galaxy Quest and Tropic Thunder would later refine. Even though it's mostly a tribute to yesteryear's heroic frontier flicks, Three Amigos stands out thanks to its unique comedic spin, a madcap adventure where naive showbiz types stumble into real-life bandit trouble. An origin that traces back to 1980, long before cameras ever rolled. Steve Martin first unveiled the premise in a 1980 Playboy interview, calling it The Three Caballeros. Initially, the cast was supposed to feature Martin, Dan Aykroyd, and John Belushi. Imagine that unstoppable comedic trifecta. But the Hollywood development cycle took its time, allowing the concept to gestate and transform. By the time it finally became Three Amigos, the comedic landscape had shifted, beloved talents had come and gone, and new angles made their way into the script. Yet that core premise remained. Comedic Western spoof meets misunderstood hero storyline. Even the name changed along the way, distancing itself from Disney's The Three Caballeros to become the quirky comedic romp we know today. Spielberg's almost adventure. A surprising fact is that none other than Steven Spielberg considered directing the film. Hot off mega hits like Raiders of the Lost Ark and E.T. the Extraterrestrial, Spielberg toyed with the idea of taking a comedic pivot. He envisioned a dream cast, Steve Martin as Lucky Day, Bill Murray as Dusty Bottoms, and Robin Williams as Ned Nederlander. Can you just picture Bill Murray's dry wit colliding with Robin Williams's freewheeling improv, all under Spielberg's deft cinematic touch? Alas, Spielberg ultimately walked away to focus on E.T., and Three Amigos would eventually land in different hands. Still, it's mesmerizing to think how that alternate dimension might have shaped not just the film, but also the comedic style of 80s cinema. Landis at the center of a storm. John Landis, the comedic maestro behind Animal House, and the Blues Brothers finally took the reins. But it wasn't a peaceful ride. He was embroiled in an involuntary manslaughter trial linked to the Twilight Zone movie accident. This legal nightmare shadowed him day in and day out. Court by morning, editing Three Amigos by night, Landis found himself juggling dire responsibilities with comedic filmmaking. This tumultuous schedule pressured the production, forcing last-minute edits and reworks to fit the night's only editing timeline. Many speculate that the film's uneven pacing arises from Landis not being able to fully immerse himself in shaping the comedic flow. Instead of the typical synergy a director might enjoy, he was balancing an enormous emotional and legal burden in tandem with comedic artistry. Studio hands on the cutting board. As if Landis's legal troubles weren't enough, Orion Pictures had their own ideas about how Three Amigos should look. Worried about long run times and comedic pacing, they slashed several sequences. Some comedic gems never saw the light of day. The desire for a brisk, family-friendly format trumped the original, more elaborate cut. Scenes that might have further fleshed out comedic relationships or offered more comedic set pieces found themselves on the cutting room floor. Landis lamented these changes, explaining that the final release felt like a compromise between his vision and the studio's commercial goals. Ironically, the film's choppy transitions and abrupt comedic shifts have become part of its oddball charm, embraced by fans who discovered Three Amigos on VHS and cable reruns. Rick Moranis in the wings. Martin Short almost lost the role of Ned Nederlander to Rick Moranis. Why? Because at the time, Short was still navigating scheduling constraints between SCTV, Saturday Night Live, and his emerging film prospects. Landis, ever the planner, had Moranis lined up in case Short had to bail. After all, Moranis was fresh off comedic success in Ghostbusters and Little Shop of Horrors. He shared a similar comedic warmth and could juggle wide-eyed innocence with deadpan humor. Had Moranis stepped in, Ned would have had a very different comedic energy. But fans can't help but be grateful that Martin Short got his big break in the Amigos lineup, since it forged an enduring friendship and creative collaboration with Steve Martin for years to come. Steve Martin's unwanted souvenir. Tinnitus shooting comedic gunfights can be more dangerous than you'd think, even with blanks. While filming a particularly noisy shootout, Steve Martin was exposed to loud gunfire at close range, and the resulting permanent tinnitus left him with ringing ears he's had to manage ever since. It's a surprising reality check about on-set safety. A film that's all about comedic tomfoolery accidentally dealt one of its stars a lasting affliction. Yet Martin continued to perform flawlessly, never letting the condition derail his comedic timing or creativity. Every time you see him in any shootout or comedic Western scene now, you might find yourself wondering if that faint ringing still hums in his ears. Cowboy ropes and Disneyland days. Steve Martin's lasso tricks. All him? Many fans assumed the film relied on skilled doubles for those spinning rope gags. In truth, Martin had honed those skills as a teenager selling guidebooks at Disneyland's Frontierland Magic Shop. He practiced rope tricks and magic illusions, feeding his fascination with showmanship. These talents later slithered seamlessly into Three Amigos. As you watch Lucky Day twirl that rope in the film, that's the real Steve Martin, tapping into a skill set that predates his stand-up fame. It's the kind of personal flourish that only adds to the film's authenticity. After all, who better to parody Western showmen than an actor who has genuinely performed rope tricks to dazzle tourists? Randy Newman, songwriter, scribe, and singing bush. Iconic singer-songwriter Randy Newman isn't just the man behind beloved Disney Pixar anthems, he also contributed to Three Amigos by co-writing the script, penning those catchy tunes like My Little Buttercup and Blue Shadows, and even cameoing, in voice form, as the singing bush. Audiences rarely connect that whimsical Bush's altered crooning with Newman, but the comedic absurdity of the cameo fits right into his signature offbeat humor. At the time, Newman's folksy charm offered a playful contrast to the boisterous comedic style of Martin, Chase, and Short. It's a testament to how many comedic geniuses converged for this project, from the script pages to the soundtrack and beyond. Elmer Bernstein mocks his own legacy. The man behind the score of The Magnificent Seven, the legendary Elmer Bernstein, turned around to poke fun at that same Western style in Three Amigos. Tired of being pigeonholed as the Western composer, Bernstein nonetheless lent an epic, trumpet-filled flourish to the Amigos' comedic escapades. This self-parody delivered exactly the melodic grandeur the film needed, amplifying comedic moments while still paying homage to classic Western cinema. If you listen closely, you can detect a winking sense of humor in the instrumentation. It's as if Bernstein was telling the audience, "Yes, I know these heroic cues. I practically invented them. Now let's have some fun twisting them into comedic gold." Martin Short's big screen debut, Three Amigos, holds a special spot in Martin Short's career. It marked his first significant movie role, transitioning him from the small screen success of SCTV and Saturday Night Live into major Hollywood comedic territory. Playing Ned Nederlander, the earnest yet ever so slightly egotistical ex-child star, Short radiated comedic magnetism. He displayed a whimsical physicality that would become part of his trademark style. More importantly, it united him with Steve Martin in a bond that would blossom into decades of comedic collaboration. After the Amigos rode off into the sunset, they regrouped for projects like Father of the Bride and comedic tours that still delight fans. It's safe to say Three Amigos was the comedic spark that fueled a long-lasting creative partnership. Chevy Chase in the shadows. For some viewers, it's puzzling how Chevy Chase's dusty bottoms ends up sidelined despite his star power. Fresh from Caddyshack and National Lampoon's Vacation, Chase was a comedic titan. Yet critics, including Roger Ebert, felt his comedic potential was underused, rendering Dusty a less developed sidekick. Still, that mild presence can add to the silly group dynamic. Steve Martin's exasperated leadership, Martin Short's eager optimism, and Chevy's laid-back aloofness. While it might not stand out as one of Chevy's top comedic performances, it serves the group interplay. And for some fans, the minimal approach is precisely what fuels comedic friction. Three different comedic energies bouncing off each other, each adding a dash of chaos to the Western canvas. Sam Kinnison's Lost Scream. It's almost painful to think that Sam Kinison, famed for his ear-piercing outbursts on stage, shot a cameo for Three Amigos, only to see it cut, then lost entirely. Landis lamented the absence, especially after Kinnison's comedic performance in Back to School proved how well he could light up a scene. One can only imagine the comedic mania Kinnison might have unleashed. The cameo's disappearance highlights the frantic nature of editing a movie under significant pressures. Comedic gold can vanish simply due to runtime constraints or mismatched pacing concerns. For fans of 80s comedy, it's a major what if that remains an elusive piece of Hollywood lore. Fran Drescher, before the nanny like Kinnison, Fran Drescher also filmed scenes for Three Amigos as a superficial Hollywood star. Sadly, her footage was similarly axed and lost. This was years before the nanny would turn Drescher's distinct nasal tone into a household staple. Imagine her comedic presence adding a little more pointed satire to the depiction of Tinseltown's glam and shallow glitz. Instead, this snippet joined a long list of casualties on the cutting room floor. Given the comedic skill she'd later show, fans can only daydream about how Drescher might have amplified the film's critique of Hollywood phoniness, bridging the world of silent-era illusions with the film's overarching comedic thrust. Phil Hartman and John Lovitz, Small Beginnings. On the brighter side, two future SNL heavyweights, Phil Hartman and John Lovitz, did make it to the finished cut. Phil Hartman had a tiny role as Sam, while Lovitz played Morty, both minor studio employees in the film's Hollywood sequences. It's a playful cameo for fans revisiting Three Amigos after having seen Hartman's comedic genius on SNL and Lovitz's memorable sketches. Their presence underscores the film's bridging of comedic generations, the established stars, Martin, Chase, coexisting with soon-to-be icons, Hartman, Lovitz. Although these roles are blink and you'll miss them, they're sweet comedic Easter eggs for viewers who recognize the comedic dynamos they would soon become. The box office's lukewarm embrace, made on a budget of around $25 million, Three Amigos earned about $39.2 million domestically, turning a modest profit but missing the spectacular success some expected from a star-studded comedic lineup. Yet, in the 1980s, a film's theatrical run wasn't always the final word. The real test was how it fared in the booming VHS rental market, and Three Amigos soared in that realm, gathering a loyal fan base that kept rewatching it in living rooms across America. The comedic trifecta's silly misadventures translated well to repeated home viewings, inviting families and friends to quote lines and sing "My Little Buttercup" together. In time, the film's rewatch culture cemented its cult classic status. A tour of southwestern filming locales. Though the story unfolds in a remote Mexican village, production was scattered across Simi Valley in California, the Coronado National Forest in Arizona, old Tucson studios, and Hollywood backlots for the silent film sequences. The southwestern desert aesthetic is real. Barren terrains, dusty trails, imposing cacti. But for the carefully choreographed opening where the Amigos appear in silent film garb, they used an aging Universal backlot once graced by real silent-era cowboys like Tom Mix. This blending of authenticity and set design enriches the comedic fabric, giving Three Amigos an oddly tangible Western vibe, even while the comedic situations remain delightfully over the top. The My Little Buttercup showstopper. Perhaps no scene exemplifies the Amigos' endearing cluelessness like their cheerful performance of My Little Buttercup in a fearsome cantina. Completely oblivious to the danger lurking around them, they bust out a light-hearted tune, serenading startled patrons who were expecting deadly German mercenaries. That razor-sharp comedic contrast, bouncy sweetness clashing with surly desperados, became an iconic moment. Fans rave about it decades later, humming the ditty whenever they recall the film. It's proof that comedic genius often lies in the gap between what characters perceive and what's actually happening, turning potential peril into a gleeful, toe-tapping number that leaves tough guys momentarily spellbound. Blue shadows and talking turtles. The campfire scene, spotlighting the lullaby-like blue shadows, channels a touch of Disney magic, specifically inspired by the 1948 cartoon short Pecos Bill, where animals join in the singing. A gentle turtle even pipes in with a random "Good night, Ned," sealing the scene with comedic flair. It's a whimsical departure from the dusty comedic spats. While the film brims with slapstick chaos, it also offers pockets of genuine sweetness. For many fans, that moment personifies the film's heart, a sweet, almost childlike respite amidst gun-toting bandits and comedic misfires, reminding us that sometimes silliness is best delivered with a lullaby under the stars. A nod to Dorothy Gish. When Ned Nederlander proudly name-drops Dorothy Gish, he references a figure from the silent film era overshadowed by her more famous sister, Lillian Gish. That detail underlines the film's playful fascination with old Hollywood. By invoking Dorothy Gish, someone only hardcore film history buffs might recognize, Three Amigos demonstrates how deeply it winks at the culture of silent cinema. The comedic irony is that Ned's boast resonates with almost no one in the film or in the modern audience. It's a testament to how Three Amigos merges broad comedic spectacle with niche in-jokes, delighting viewers who catch the reference. The Amigos' fake filmography, Amigo classics like Amigos, 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 Shooting for Love, Little Neddy Grab Your Gun, and Little Neddy Goes to War might sound hilariously on the nose, but that's the point. These titles capture the sometimes outrageous naming conventions from silent-era film production. Short, punchy, and brimming with exclamation marks, they exemplify the assembly line approach of churning out Western-themed crowd-pleasers. They also highlight how the Amigos, in their Hollywood bubble, have built entire careers on formulaic fluff. It's just one more comedic dig at how illusions on film can overshadow any real heroism, setting the stage for the hilarity once they find themselves in actual bandit territory. Why Santo Poco? If you ever wondered about the meaning behind the village's name, Santo Poco roughly translates to Little Saint, a gentle jab at the typical Spanish naming pattern that references saints, coupled with the comedic irony of a little or humble place overshadowed by looming bandits. It underscores the underdog vibe. This tiny village has pinned its hopes on three incompetent actors. The comedic friction is clear. Unassuming residents trusting the loud but clueless. That mismatch of expectations drives the story, fueling both comedic fiascos and triumphant moments. Santo Poco's name cements its status as a humble haven where comedic destiny takes shape. German arms dealers, rooted in history. Three Amigos doesn't exactly scream historical realism, yet there's a surprising factual kernel. In 1916, Germany really did meddle in Mexico during the Revolution, hoping to keep the U.S. occupied. In the film, German arms dealers ally with El Guapo, selling him firepower. Though it's played for comedy, it's drawn from a genuine historical intrigue about German involvement. It's an unexpected dimension in an otherwise whimsical comedy, a dash of real-world tension swirling beneath singing cowboys and flamboyant wardrobes. But the movie doesn't dwell on it. It simply uses the detail to crank up the stakes, ensuring the Amigos face more than just cartoonish bandits. Controversies over Mexican portrayals, from its release to present day, Three Amigos has faced criticism for depicting Mexicans as gullible, helpless villagers and one-dimensional villains. Even John Landis's own lawyer, Harland Braun, voiced concerns. Defenders argue it's a satire lampooning ignorant American stars more than it ridicules Mexicans. But the broader debate touches on how comedic works can perpetuate stereotypes, even unintentionally. In 1986, this might have stirred fewer voices than it would today. Nonetheless, it's part of the film's legacy, prompting reflection on how comedic farce deals with cultural representation. It's up to each viewer to decide if the film's playful spirit triumphs over concerns about reinforcing outdated cliches. Summoning and shooting the invisible swordsman. The invisible swordsman gag is possibly the movie's boldest descent into cartoonish lunacy. The Amigos perform a bizarre incantation meant to conjure a mystical ally, only for Dusty to fire prematurely, dispatching the newly appeared but unseen figure. With a thud, the gag reveals just how haphazard and random their heroic efforts can be. It's a comedic gem because it veers into pure, absurd fantasy. One moment they're chanting nonsense, the next they've added unintentional manslaughter to their list of comedic missteps. It's comedic whiplash, a key ingredient in the film's brand of slapstick unpredictability. Threadless sewing machines. A lesser-known production slip-up? During the climactic sequence where villagers create an army of decoy Amigos outfits, eagle-eyed viewers notice the sewing machines aren't even threaded. Despite that small oversight, the scene epitomizes comedic teamwork, townsfolk uniting to trick the bandits. Practicalities aside, the frantic energy and triumphant payoff overshadow any technical inaccuracy. But once you see the missing thread, it becomes a comical Easter egg. Perhaps it's a metaphor for the entire production, pieces thrown together under time constraints, forging comedic gold even if certain details don't quite line up. El Guapo's plethora of piñatas, villainous though he may be, Alfonso Arau's El Guapo stands out for his comedic flair, especially when he asks, "Would you say I have a plethora of piñatas?" The word plethora feels hilariously out of place in a bandit's hideout, yet it cements El Guapo as a memorable rogue. Arau's delivery elevates a silly question into an iconic line, reinforcing how this comedic Western subverts expectations at every corner. El Guapo isn't just a sneering villain, he's someone who frets over piñata quantity. Fans still quote that line as a litmus test for Three Amigos awareness. It's comedic incongruity at its best, weaving polysyllabic humor into an outlaw's vocabulary. Mixed reception, lasting love upon release, Three Amigos received lukewarm reviews, hovering around 45% on Rotten Tomatoes from critics. Roger Ebert found it lacking the full-throttle madness that might have elevated it to comedic legend. Audiences, however, gave it a warmer 65% score, enough to hint at a comedic formula that resonated with viewers, if not with every critic. The comedic synergy, silly premise, and infinitely quotable lines found a home in people's hearts. Over the years, its cult following has grown. The mismatch between critics and the public is a reminder that comedic taste is deeply subjective. What fails for some can become comedic bliss for others. Horseback woes for the trio. When you imagine a Western parody, you might picture the leads galloping effortlessly across the desert. Behind the scenes, Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short tried horse riding lessons but reportedly gave up after just one grueling day. Any subsequent impressive horse moments? Stunt doubles? The comedic dimension of seeing them bounce stiffly on horseback now feels even funnier. These city slicker comedic icons playing roles of big-screen cowboys, ironically not even comfortable in the saddle. This mismatch plays right into the theme of hapless Hollywood stars posing as real gunslingers. It's one more example of how the movie's comedic DNA was shaped by on- and off-set realities, evolving into a cult classic. In the grand tapestry of 80s comedies, Three Amigos stands tall for its enduring influence. Later films like Galaxy Quest and Tropic Thunder openly borrowed from the premise of actors cluelessly dropped into genuine peril. Even Bravo included Three Amigos in its top 100 comedy list, underscoring how beloved it's become. Fans quote lines endlessly, dance along to My Little Buttercup, and rewatch the comedic misadventures with the same glee each time. The dynamic trio's fiascos, combined with musical interludes and bizarre side gags, blend into a comedic formula that keeps audiences hooked. From a precarious production overshadowed by studio meddling and legal drama, Three Amigos evolved into a cherished comedic staple, defying initial skepticism and riding off into the sunrise of cult favorite status. These 30 facts reveal the comedic chaos, behind-the-scenes drama, and creative spark that brought Three Amigos to life. From early development hurdles and near-miss casting decisions to lost cameos and cultural debates, every piece of its history feeds into why it remains so lovable. Even now, the movie's quotes, slapstick hijinks, and silly songs resonate with new generations, reminding us that there's a timeless charm in watching three well-intentioned fools muddle their way through a larger-than-life Western adventure. After all, where else can you find invisible swordsmen, accidental heroics, and a plethora of piñatas united under one shimmering sombrero? It's precisely that mixture of heart, humor, and silliness that cements Three Amigos as an 80s comedic delight, worthy of its place in Hollywood's comedic pantheon.